Alhamdulillah, it is that time again. Increase our worship and plead for forgiveness. Alhamdulillah, it is that time again. Increase our worship and plead for forgiveness.
Need inspiration? Need to brush up on the do's and don'ts during this blessed month? Join us for Sunnahfollowers, Ramadan prep, and allow Ustada Laila Nasheeba to walk you through day by day through this blessed month of Ramadan. This will keep your iman tight, your ibadah right, and keep you pushing in the light. Streaming on all major platforms. Channel Sunnahfollowers.
Welcome to a new way. He has put you on a new journey. Hold close to him and follow what he says. Sent the final prophet Muhammad to mankind a mercy.
This is the 5th day, how to make the most of your fasting time. Let's take a look at this. And I'm using more than one computer, so let me not. So listen to what our way of life. Remember, Islam is not just a religion. It's also a beautiful way of life. Our way of life teaches us to care, to take care of our time, to don't squander the time. And we also are not supposed to waste our time, nor should we ever curse time, because time comes from Allah. He's the one. Not only does he control the hearts of man, but he controls the hands of time. Y'all understand that? That's why man cannot time travel. Ever since the beginning of the creation, man has attempted to change the time, to try to travel through time. It's impossible because Allah controls the hands of time. So Allah tells us don't curse it. Instead, make the best of it. Don't waste it. And when you're sleeping all day, you're wasting time. And also, Allah tells us that we're going to be held accountable as to how we spend our time. Allah is going to ask you, why did you sleep most of the day instead of praying, instead of remembering him, instead of doing good deeds? He's going to ask you, why did you waste your time playing Xbox when that was time that you could have spent helping your mother clean the house, helping your sister with her homework? That was time that you could have spent feeding the cats that you have, changing the litter box of the cat. So, Allah is going to ask us how we spent our time. Allah is going to say, I allowed you to live for 40 years. You lived for 40 years and you still didn't understand what La ilaha illallah means. Allah is going to ask us in that grave, I allowed you to live for 40 years. You were a Muslim for 40 years and you didn't know the pillars of fasting, but you knew how to sing Mariah Carey. You learned psychology, but you didn't take the time to learn what are the pillars of fasting. You did not know that intentions is a pillar of fasting. that without your intention, your fast is not accepted. Allah is not going to accept those type of excuses. And that's also, guys, why the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said in another authentic hadith, this is the meaning of it. The Prophet said, any man who Allah allows to live to see the age of 40 and he died upon sins, there's no excuse for him. And in another hadith, the Prophet said, anyone who Allah allows to live the age of 30 and he's still doing the same sins, there's no excuse. Because in those 30 years, those 40 years, those 50, 60 years of life, you should have known better. You're still smoking cigarettes and you 50 years old. You should have known better that it's haram. For you women out there who are not wearing hijab, when you die, the angels are going to say to you, Allah allowed you to live on the earth for 40 years and you still did not wear hijab. There's no excuse. How many of us say as teenagers, oh, I'm young. I believe in Allah, but I want to go have my fun. You know, I'm going to go out in the streets and, party. When I get older, I'll start practicing. You say that when you're 20. Then 30 comes, you still ain't practicing your deen. You still got boyfriends. You still looking like a hoochie coochie girl, okay? You still ain't praying. Then you live to be 50, then you die. You kept putting off changing the condition of yourself. That's what that hadith means when the Prophet said, anyone who lives to see the age of 30, and in another hadith, who lives to see the age of 40, and another hadith, who lives to see the age of 60, Allah will not accept no excuses from them. That's what that means, because you had the time. Allah gave you enough time on this earth to know better. So now let's look at how the companions, and remember, as I told you guys yesterday, who are our heroes? It's not these dour brothers y'all see on the internet. It's not these celebrity idiots who's praying in Times Square. You already know that's a sin. The Tartar Weed prayer is supposed to be at the mosque behind Imam. The Prophet Muhammad was clear. He said your prayer at the mosque, your prayer in the marketplace, your prayer in the street is nothing like your prayer in the mosque. Okay? So these brothers are committing some sins and they praying around filthy people. They praying in the gutters. The filthiest place in America is Times Square. They're going to be held accountable to Allah for that. That's a waste of time. Okay? Well, listen to how the companions spent their time. Al-Hasan al-Basri, he was one of the third generation of Muslims. He said, I saw the companions and how they were so careful of how they spent their time. They were more careful of how they spent their time than they were about their money. All we care about today is money. The companions weren't into that. The companions were more concerned with, let me see how much remembrance of Allah can I put into the day? What else can I do to show my gratitude to Allah? What can I do to earn Allah's love? What good deeds can I do? They were more concerned with that than making money. But like we talked about yesterday, each generation of Muslims become further and further and further away from the true Islam. And we are the present generation. So we are the worst of all. But we're taking men from amongst us as our heroes and role models, when these are the worst men created. Okay? So the true believer is careful of his time, just like the companions were. And the true believers, they invest and benefit from the amount of time that Allah gives them here on earth. Listen to what Ibn al-Qayyim, who was one of the early scholars, and again, he was better than these men today too. Each generation becomes further and further away, worse and worse. Listen to what Ibn al-Qayyim, he was also a student of Ibn Taymiyyah. He said the highest, most worthy, and most useful of reflection is what is intended for Allah in the hereafter. He said there are various forms of reflection that are intended for Allah. One of them is to reflect on how you spend your time, because the knowledgeable person is an example of how he spent his time. If he wasted, then all his interests are wasted. For all interest comes from time. And if he wastes his time, he can never regain it. We can never change the hands of time and make them go backwards. That's why the Prophet Muhammad said, there's no excuse for missing a prayer except sleep or forgetfulness. That's why you cannot go back and say, I'm going to make up all the prayers I missed when I was a kid. You can't make those prayers up because that time is gone. That's why you cannot say, I'm going to make up for all the fast I missed. You only have until the beginning of the next Ramadan. I repeat, you only have till the beginning of the next Ramadan. I repeat again, you only have until the beginning of the next Ramadan to make up your fast from this year, because you can't make the year go backwards. I know we got other people who say you can, but that's incorrect. You cannot change time. Allah says in the Quran about the prayers, every prayer has its fixed time. Ramadan comes every year at its fixed time. You cannot change the hands of time and go backwards. That's why if you don't make up your fast before the next Ramadan, you've blown it. You're a sinner. You committed a sin. You have to repent. You can't fast to make them days up after a year. You repent. Ask Allah to forgive you and don't do it again. If you didn't make your prayers yesterday, you can't say I'm going to make them today unless you were asleep or unless you forgot. Because you can't make the prayer go back to the fixed time it was yesterday. So the believer is careful of time. He makes sure that he performs his prayers within the time frame Allah has given us. He makes sure he performs all his obligations within the time frames that Allah has given us. Time is a mercy from Allah. Listen to what Imam Ash-Shafi said. He said, out of my company with the Sufis, he said, there are only two things. There's only two things good that I can say about the Sufis. He said, one is their saying of, like a sword, time will cut you if you don't cut it. In other words, if you do not spend time doing something useful, you are a loser. He said, this is one of the only things good that he found about the Sufis. The Sufis believe in making the most of their time and not wasting it. But they overdo it. How do the Sufis overdo it? They don't understand that there's a time for this and a time for that. The Sufis, they spend all night praying and they neglect their sleep. They neglect their wives. They neglect their bodies. Okay? Or they'll spend all day praying and they neglect their families. They neglect their bodies. They overdo it. They think that time is so important that I'm going to spend every second of it remembering Allah. We can't do that. As the Prophet Muhammad said, when Abu Bakr, may Allah be pleased with him, approached him with another companion, and they said, "O Prophet of Allah, we feel that we're damned. When you're here amongst us, you tell us about Allah, you tell us about Islam, and we think about Allah. But then when you leave, we go home and we get involved with our children and our wives. We're doomed." And that's when the Prophet said, "Don't you know, Abu Bakr, if you were to spend every second of the time remembering Allah, then the angels would shake your hands." In other words, you be an angel. The angels were created to remember Allah. The angels were created to do whatever Allah commands them. You're a human. He says, since we're humans, there's a time for this, a time for that, a time to pray, a time to fast, a time to laugh, a time to cry. So it's impossible for any of us as human beings to spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, remembering Allah. The angels do that, not us. That's the meaning of that hadith. And what's the source of that hadith? Sahih Bukhari. And that's the mistake that the Sufis make. Okay, they got it right when they said take advantage of your time and don't waste it. But they go to the extremes and praying, doing nothing but praying, doing nothing but reading the Quran, doing nothing but Allah, and they neglect their other obligations. They make the religion hard on themselves. They make the religion difficult, and they apostate, many of them. Listen to what Hassan al-Banna said. Imam al-Hassan al-Banna said. He said, time is life itself. And this statement of his reflects upon Ibn Qayyim when he said, one's time is in fact your age. Time is the material of your eternal life. Either it's spent in everlasting joy or everlasting torture. Time passes more quickly than the clouds do. It is only the time that you dedicate to Allah that constitutes or determines your real life and your real age. The other time doesn't count. The life you lead in that type of time is only the type of life that an animal has. What's that? Eating, sleeping, reproducing. That's what the animals do. The animals eat, they sleep, they reproduce. So this statement of Ibn Qayyim is something that we need to ponder today. A lot of us, we spend our fasting time sleeping. When you break your fast, you spend it eating and reproducing. That's what the animals do. That's what dogs do. That's what cats do. They get up, they go out and hunt, eat, come back, sleep, make more babies, and keep it moving. That's an animal. We're of a higher status than them. Yes, there's a time to eat. Yes, there's a time to sleep. Yes, there's a time to reproduce, but we have to seek knowledge too. Knowledge of what our purpose is. As I talked about yesterday, the prophet said, live in this world. Be in this world as if you were a stranger or a traveler. A stranger doesn't get too close to anything. Yes, the stranger eats. Yes, the stranger drinks. Yes, the stranger marries and have kids. Yes, the stranger works, but he doesn't become too attached to those things that he has to do. Or be like the traveler. The traveler just takes what he needs. takes what he needs from this world, and he goes from one point of life to another point of life. I was a child. When I was a child, I learned the hadiths. I memorized all the hadiths by heart. That's one point in life. Then when I was a teenager, I learned the meaning of those hadiths in the proper meaning of them in English as a teenager. And then as an adult, I created a website and took all that knowledge of the hadiths, all that understanding of the true meaning in English, and I conveyed it to other English-speaking people in their language so they can understand. And now in the middle years, the last years of my life, after retiring, now I'm going to spend more time reaping the blessings of all of that. That's the traveler. That's the traveler. That's the traveler. He goes from one point to the next, taking only what he needs, not getting too comfortable, not getting too set in one way. Time, guys. How many of us take advantage of time? How many of us squander it? So time is also a vehicle for work. And as Muslims, we have to keep in mind what I talked about yesterday. Our goal, like my stepfather told me, your goal, Layla, your goal should always be on paradise, the hereafter. No matter how old you get, no matter what you experience in life, keep your eye on the hereafter and work towards it. As the clock ticks, our lives pass us by. I'm not that 10-year-old girl that was able to quote them hadiths to Mukhtar's father. I'm not that 10-year-old girl that could sit with Mukhtar's mother and memorize the meaning of those hadiths no more. Okay? I'm not that 20-year-old girl that sat with Sheikh Yusuf Qaradari with a translator trying to learn the meaning of those hadiths. I'm not that 30-year-old woman who was sitting with Sheikh Morsi understanding the meaning even more. And I'm not that 40-year-old woman that was sitting with Sheikh Atli and Dr. Asim learning the Fusha and learning the tajweed of that stuff. Okay, as the clock ticks, our life passes us by. Did you spend the hours of the day doing what will benefit you in the hereafter or not? That's the question that we all should be asking ourselves every day, especially since this month of Ramadan is here. If Allah were to end your time, if you were to die right now, can you look back and see that the hours that you spent in the day, in the night, will be of benefit to you or not? The companions did. The companions worked for the hereafter. The companions made sure they spent most of their time remembering Allah and doing good deeds to bring them closer to Him. I tell you guys, I told you guys yesterday, what's one of the things I always hear, which is one of the reasons why I'm single. Why do you teach? Why do you spend all that time doing dawah? I don't spend all that time doing dawah. I only do 2 classes a day. I've been teaching 2 classes a day since I was in my 20s. That's not a lot of time to me. That's not a lot of time. I still take care of the rest of my business. I went to college. I got 2 bachelor's degrees. I worked. I just retired. I worked for 36 years and took care of the developmentally disabled. I raised my daughter. I'm there for my grandkids. I travel to the mountains 4 times a year to take a break. I mean, I do exercise. I still do what I need to do. I live a good life. But you telling me to stop, take away my time from Allah? Are you crazy? What will I replace it with? If I were to stop teaching those 2 classes that I've been teaching for years, what are you telling me to replace it with? There's nothing to replace it with except henna parties, gossip, backbiting, television, playing bid whist. Oh, I love bid whist. I can play bid whist all day and night. The companions worked towards the hereafter. They made sure, and we all claim to be people of the Sunnah. We all claim to be like those companions. Why would you ask me a question like that? The companions, Aisha, radiallahu anha, and all the rest of the female companions, they spend most of their time remembering Allah and doing the good deeds to bring them closer to Him. When the Prophet Muhammad died, Aisha, radiallahu anha, after that battle of the camel, she spent the rest of her life teaching Islam. She took in young girls who were orphans, trained them in character and mannerisms. She opened up a school for girls. She taught the girls. And then in the evenings, she would sit there and teach the women and answer any questions they had. I'm not doing anything differently than her. Plus, she spent time with her nieces. Plus, she spent time with her nephews. Plus, she made Hajj. Plus, she made Umrah. Plus, she owned property. Okay? Plus, she would give advice to Umar. She would advise her father. You know, I'm no different than those female companions. But you want to tell me that I should stop? I'm giving too much dawah? I ain't giving enough. There's never enough. Subhanallah. We have to get back to being like these companions, guys, instead of being like these kafirs. The companions never put the life of this world over the hereafter. They didn't put their mother. They didn't put their father, their children, their money. They didn't put nothing over Allah. But you're going to tell me I need to stop teaching my little 2 classes and do what? Go out and do the henna party? Just hang out in the streets? I ain't got no man. If I had a husband here, it's different. I can find something to do with a husband. But I'm a single woman. What am I supposed to do? Go out in the street and just, hey, Nikki. Hey, Beyonce. Come on, people. We have to get it together, Muslims. As Muslims, we have to understand that Allah demands that we benefit from time. As Muslims, Allah demands that we utilize our free time. There's a time for this. There's a time for that. Before I sit here to teach these classes, what am I doing? My Zoom people know I'm on the phone with my grandkids, making sure that they understand what's expected of them from Ramadan. I'm on the phone with my mother, seeing if she needed me to come over there. I'm also making appointments to get my hair done. I'm also washing clothes, cooking, Instacarting, cleaning my house, dealing with my cats, trimming them. Okay? But at 6:30, it's time for Allah. 9:30, it's time for Allah. How is that too much? How is that too much? Y'all tell me. We are supposed to benefit from time, utilize it properly, and race to do good deeds and learn from the passage of time. Learn how those female companions spent their time. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was alive, like Aisha radiallahu anha said, we spent our time helping him. Though his wives spent their time helping him in his dawah, helping him. Okay? Learn from the passage of time. Learn that if you got a man, you're supposed to be with him, helping him. And when your man is gone, when he's dead, or when he's somewhere else, utilize your time like Aisha did, remembering Allah. That's what I do. Okay? And also we should plan and organize our time. Fulfill all commitments of time and not waste it. I ain't no squanderer. I don't have time for that female drama. You will never see me going to no dinner parties and henna parties and these women getting together, taking off their hijab. I don't do that garbage. Aisha didn't take off her hijab and sit around with women dancing and hula hooping. I don't do that. Okay? Remember, guys, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, take advantage of 5 things before 5 other things happen to you. Number 1, take advantage of your youth before you become decrepit. That's something that my stepfather used to tell me about time. When I was young, oh yeah, my stepfather, Mukhtar's father, Mukhtar's mother, my godmother, they made me get in those books. Not just the school books, but those hadith books, those aqidah books to learn my deen. Because like my mother said, your mind is like a sponge when you're young. I had a photographic memory. We're going to soak her up. When they diagnosed me as a genius with a photographic memory, my mother said she's going to learn all these hadiths by heart in Bukhari and all these hadiths by heart in Muslim. Okay? Soak it up. Take advantage of your youth before you become too old to remember. And I'm glad my mother did that. I'm glad my stepfather did that. May Allah bless Mukhtar's father. May Allah bless Mukhtar's mother, because all that program hadith is in my brain still. Now that I'm 63, there's no way I could have memorized the entire collection of Bukhari, Muslim, Mishkat, Muwatta, and all the Sitta, Dawood. I could never have done that at the age I am now. But my parents made me take advantage of my youth before decrepitude. Also, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, take advantage of your health before you become sick with an illness. How many Muslims you hear put off making Hajj? You got the money. You got the mahram. But you don't want to make Hajj because I'm too young. I'm going to wait till I get older so I can make up for all my sins. How do you know that you're going to live? Live to get old. How do you know that you're going to even have a husband? Now look how many women put off making Hajj when they were young. And now that they old, they ain't got no husband. Or they ain't got the money. Take advantage of your health before sickness. Take advantage of your money before poverty. Take advantage of your free time before the day comes that you have to work. Take advantage of your life, the Prophet said, before death comes knocking on that door. This is one of my favorite hadiths. It brings about so much meaning. It points out the importance of time. It points out how we need to invest in it properly, like my parents did me growing up in the 60s. My youth, memorization of hadith and aqidah. My teen years, practicing it. My adult years, understanding the meaning correctly from the Arabic language. And my old years, instilling that knowledge, making sure that knowledge passes on to others. So we have to utilize the power of time, guys, beginning with youth until we get old. That's how you parents should be raising your children. I grew up in the 60s. The 60s was a different era. The people were better then. It was all about la ilaha illallah. People fought and died for the true Islam in the 60s. People fought and died to pull the people away from that Elijah Muhammad to the true Sunnah. They were a different breed of men and women. So they invested in their kids like my parents did me. But you Muslims today in 2025, y'all are not investing in your children. You're not teaching the kids this religion. You're not having them learn the hadiths. They learn the Quran, but they don't learn the hadiths. You are neglecting that, the Sunnah. As the Prophet said, you can learn the Quran and memorize it all you want to, but you're not going to understand it until you learn the hadiths. The hadiths have become neglected. Then the hadiths have become forgotten. The hadiths have become abandoned, just like the Prophet said they would. You guys need to utilize the youth of your children. And again, on another hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do not lose time to do good deeds. Do take advantage of the time before these calamities happen. Number one, a starvation that can impact your thinking ability, or a prosperity that can mislead you, or a sickness that can damage your health, or old age that can harm your thinking abilities, or a sudden death. Take advantage of doing good deeds before any of those things happen. And also the Antichrist, or the day of judgment, which will be the hardest and most bitter for us to endure. If the day of judgment were to come right now, are you guys ready? If that angel of death were to come knocking on your door right now, are you ready to go? Or are you going to fight against it? Are you going to say, let me get another game? Let me get another round of Xbox in? Or are you going to be saying, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to make my prayers. It's too late then. It's too late to make your prayers then. None of us know what tomorrow holds. Sickness can impact us at any moment. Death can come at any moment. Something can happen and you lose your mind. You go into a coma at any moment. So take advantage. Take advantage of time. Take advantage of your health. Also, in another hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if a person becomes worried about something, that's when he'll rush to complete his task. And if he rushes, he will soon reach his destination. What does that mean? If the doctor told you today, Brother Abdul, I got your blood test results back. You have cancer. You only have 2 months to live. I bet you if Allah told us, if a doctor told us that all we had is 2 months to live, oh, we'd bust our behind making our salats. Oh, we'd be trying to do as many good deeds as we can. We'd be praying, fasting, kumbaya, and everything else. You brothers would live in the mosque then. That's what happens when we're afraid. When we're afraid that something bad's going to happen, oh, we do what we're supposed to do then. Why should it be that way? Why should it be when something bad happens that now we decide, okay, now I'm going to take the religion seriously. Now I'm going to make my prayers. Now I'm going to wear hijab. Now I'm going to make the most of my time. That shouldn't be, but that's the case that it is with man. And also, guys, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged us to begin the day early. And this is something that I witnessed. Being a person that worked third shift for 36 years, you never get off that shift. The Prophet encouraged us to begin the day early. Aisha said that the Prophet said, wake up early to earn your living and take care of your business, because this brings about blessings and success. How many of you are sleeping the day away? It's Ramadan. You're fasting. Instead of you getting up, going to the store to buy food for your family, that's blessings. Instead of you getting up, cleaning up the house to bring the angels of mercy in, that's blessings. Instead of you going to the mosque to pray the prayer, that's blessings. You're sleeping, squandering your time, waking up at nighttime. Nothing to do then. So again, guys, we have to make the most of our time. In fact, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam made dua He said, "Oh Allah, bless my nation's early rising." How many of you knew that? The prophet asked Allah to bless us, those of us who get up early to earn our living. If you get up early and start your day, inshallah, if you're making your prayers every day, you're wearing hijab, you're obeying Allah, you will come home in the evening successful. You'll come home in the evening rewarded. So again, as we continue to come into the ending of the first week of Ramadan, I want you guys to think about how you are spending your time. Don't spend it watching TV. Don't spend it sleeping. Don't spend it Xboxing. Don't spend it that way. Spend it doing things of benefit to you, to get closer to Allah. Don't overdo it. Like I was telling the parents the other day, you got kids who are fasting. The fast gets harder during the last few hours. Let the kids take a break to play Xbox for an hour. But you don't want the kids on the Xbox the whole time they're fasting. All right, so I'm going to stop right here. Subhanakallahumma